-10 to +15 seconds tolerance.
Okay, so it's -10 right now. Right?
-30, bro.
Yeah.
Swear to God.
Oh God, dude, it's moving as slow as this bezel. Right?
Yep.
Nice.
Pretty much, man.
Oh, you know what's funny, man? When you compare it like this, it almost looks like this is me at maximum speed with the bezel. That's the second stand right now. Hi guys, I'm Patrick.
And I'm Adam.
And this is Clock,
Stock, and Barrel.
Thank you guys for joining us today. We have a special episode for you. I know you guys have heard this name before, Marine Master. And we're not talking about your local marina's headmaster.
We're talking about the MM300, baby.
Okay, so guys, this is, I would say, the top-end diver from Seiko.
Boom!
If not the spring drives that are out now. But this is one of Adam's personal pieces. He picked this up.
Oh man, I've been wanting one of these for probably a little over a year now.
I've been listening to this guy talk
Since
about
I found
these
out about
for well over a year now. I mean, yeah. You know what's funny? I mean, you always talk about Panerai and you always talk about the Marine Master 300.
Yep.
And I'm so glad you got it because it gives me a chance to experience it. And I'll give you a little bit of my impression later, but tell us some of...
Yeah, so I guess we'll kind of get through some of the basic specs on this bad boy. So this is a lot of people refer to this as the Japanese Rolex, and I'll just kind of quickly say right off the bat that if you go to Rolex forums, you go to Watch You Seek forums, if you just type in Rolex versus MM300, there are a ridiculous amount of threads of people arguing about how the MM300 is just as good, better value for money, which is, we'll kind of get to that a little bit later on.
The steel grade of the modern Rolex is a little better.
Absolutely, and when there's so much freaking steel here, right, it actually makes a difference.
I think it's just a beautiful, monoblock case. It's so nice.
Yeah.
I can't stop looking at it, guys. And again, this is similar to our horse video. You cannot get enough of looking at this watch, particularly in person. There are a lot of good images out there. They don't do this watch.
Yeah, I'm trying to reflect some light.
I mean, that is the greatest injustice of all. This piece is absolutely stellar in person, and it's meant to be a real dive watch, like all of Seiko's.
Yeah. So I saw this at the Seiko boutique, I don't want to say 6 months ago, and I was like, damn, I need to own this one. And when I finally saw it, we're here in New York City, guys, so that's something we get to see. We get to see some limited edition Seikos at the Seiko boutique. And I finally ended up finding one on the forums. On the forums. And I got it. It came with a Crafter Blue rubber.
Yeah, they make
rubber strap
specific for the.
So it's fitted right along the case. If you guys just search MM300 Crafter Blue, that's a phenomenal rubber strap to have. And I'm really, really grateful that I found one with it because I would have purchased one anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, some basic specs. This Seiko, not quite. It is grand, but it is not a grand Seiko.
No. It's actually part of the prospects line, guys. So if you want to know, do you know the model number?
So this is the SBDX017. So this is the second gen. SBDX001 was the first gen.
Correct.
Difference between the two. I know they changed the lume a little bit, so the lume is just slightly brighter on this, and the biggest difference is they have a DiaShield coating on this, which
bracelet and the casing,
which makes it more scratch resistant, which is great,
there's another,
especially with all those polished bits
that I noticed. Guys, you're probably familiar with Seiko's crowns
and
engravings, so you know it's a modern version. If you look at that crown, you see their Prospects logo right there. It's featured nowhere else but there, but I believe the literature on the dial is exactly the same as the previous model, the 001. But other than that, it's still a phenomenal watch. I mean, I'll give you my impressions later. So dimensions.
Keep in mind while we're going through this, guys, you can purchase this on Seiya Japan or Chino for about $1,800, a little over $1,800, brand new.
That's a good deal.
So keep that price in mind as we're discussing the different specs and characteristics. So it's a 44 millimeter case width diameter, and it wears a little bit smaller. It wears a little bit closer to an SKX, which is about 42.5, because of the way the case shape kind of protrudes.
Yeah, you can see it on that profile.
Outside, you can see on the shot
it's
right here.
Similar to a sumo, similar to a turtle in that sense.
Exactly. The lug to lug, I can't remember. I want to say it's 49. It wears really, really well on the list. The lugs are pretty short. It has a 14.5 millimeter thickness. So, it's relatively thick, but this is a saturation diver, water resistant to 300 meters. So it's gonna sit pretty high on the wrist regardless, and that's what you should expect, I feel like, with a true professional diver.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things you guys can see about this piece is that it is a monoblock case construction. So what that means is there's no case back that you screw into off the backside. If you want to get to the movement, you have to take the bezel off and come all the way in through the dial, take the dial out, and then get to the movement. So there's only a couple people here, I think, in the States that can actually do that. Otherwise, you have to send it to the Seiko Service Center in Jersey, and I think other than that, you might have to. They might even send this to Japan. I'm not sure at this point. But I'm setting this off for regulation, and we'll get to that in a minute. To a gentleman named Jack at IWW. I think it stands for International Watchworks, and he's an MM300 expert. So he's
He's here in New York?
He's not in New York. I want to say he's based in North Carolina.
Okay.
So shout out to Jack at IWW. He's probably not going to watch this video, but
if
anyone needs
a link, Jack.
Yeah. So 20 millimeter lug width, which I actually think is appropriate for this watch because of the way it wears more like a 42, and I prefer 20 millimeter lug widths. The bracelet itself, it has solid end links, and you can see it has drilled lugs as well, which for me is great. And I think that's for a true tool watch. Every true tool watch should have drilled lugs, so you can swap out to a NATO or anything you want. The bracelet itself, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I think overall, it's not too bad. Keep in mind, like I said, this is $1,800, and it still has push pin collar system. There's no
if you guys have ever sized a push pin collar bracelet yourself, you're probably aware of the frustrations, and you probably lost a lot of ferrules or those collars over time, and it becomes a little taxing.
Yeah.
But once it's sized, after wearing it, it's very comfortable, and I don't know, you've worn it much longer.
Yeah, and it's like a spot-on fit for me. So one of the things too, it depends on your wrist size. I'm right just under 7.25 or so. The actual links themselves are a little bit long. It would have been nicer if they maybe included a couple half links, but as you guys can see on the clasp, there are quite a few micro adjustments.
Those are good micro adjustments.
Yeah.
Those are very evenly spaced. And
exactly.
An idea of and this is one knock about the clasp I'm wearing now. It's like, look at and you can do a comparison with yours. Here are the micro adjustments on my watch, the micro adjustments on his clasp, those are actual useful distances. They're very, very well spaced.
Right. And you can see I'm all the way in. I decided to have that full extra link. And it ended up being a perfect fit for me. And it's, a lot of people complain that it's a little bit top heavy, but if you get the perfect fit, which I did, I mean, there's like no play at all. But it's not, it's not overly tight, which is great. The titanium clasp is something that's kind of interesting and pretty unique too. Yeah, titanium clasp. It's pretty unique to Seiko. I had a tuna before this, and that tuna also had a titanium clasp. And it also includes the ratchet system, which is their diver extension system, which is kind of interesting. All you do is pull this back, and it'll, there we go, push this back, and the ratchet extends. So that's pretty cool.
It's integrated into
the
buckle here.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really dive, so I'm never gonna use this. I'm just a total desk diver.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
But I like what that does for the underside of that buckle. It's
exactly.
Really nice, flat. The housing for the dive extension is really comfortable on the wrist. I think that's what sets it apart from a lot of other watches.
Exactly. And in the summertime, if your wrist ever swells a lot, you can just pop it open and just get maybe a notch or two on that clasp. So
I mean,
overall,
it's there for that too.
Yeah.
Honestly, so if it's there, use it. You know.
So the links are great. I mean, the bracelet itself is okay. The ratchet system, you know, it's a little bit thick, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And this is a professional diver after all. So the bracelet has some cool little polished bits as well, which makes it a little bit more
dressy.
You know, dressy.
A little bit dressy.
And you can see how polished this watch is as well, all up on the sides and everything. So that makes it a little bit more blingy. But you know, I love it. I think it gives it great character.
Oh my gosh! And the best part about this piece, now, I actually haven't fooled.
How about you talk about the bezel?
I would love to.
Because I love this bezel too, but I mean, this bezel is like something we've never.
Do you mind if I fool with the crown?
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys, you might have seen our review of the Loom Tech straight out of Ohio, the model that Adam has, and I love that crown. So the crown here is good, and then this is similar to me. This is similar to the Action. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, so it threads easily. The crown's really nice. It's not as nice as the Loom Tech.
It's not as nice as the Loom Tech, but I will say I've seen some people talk about how the crown is no better than an SKX crown, and that's just not true. And that may be true for the SBDX 001. The 017 they may have changed a little bit so that it feels a little more buttery.
Yeah.
But the crown action, maybe it's not as good as the Loom Tech, but the Loom Tech's probably the best you've ever felt, though.
If
top three.
I would say that this crown action is comparable to the Shogun or the Sumo.
Yeah, I think that sounds about
It's
right.
like it threads smoothly. It's definitely not as sandy or as gritty as you might get with like my Turtle. It's very, very gritty. And I've had a couple SKXs and this is better than that, but not. I would say that Loom Tech is the gold standard for me as to what a crown action should feel like.
Absolutely.
However, the action on this bezel. You know, guys, I've played with a lot of bezels. I've owned a lot of dive watches, and I've been to a lot of.
He has a thing for bezels, guys.
I really do, and you know what? Anyone who's collected dive watches knows exactly what I'm talking about. The action on the bezel, whether you use it or not, it matters. It really does. And guys.
Yeah, that's where you can feel the quality.
So now this bezel, and I know you can't feel what I'm feeling, is it has such a good resistance to it. It's almost as if you were trying to. It's like you can feel that there's some sort of rubber retainer or something keeping this from moving because it is the most solid feeling bezel. There is no concern of this for divers out there. This ever moving, and even if it did, it moves so slow. It's like there's other bezels. You know, I can just like ratchet this around as quickly as I'd like. It's as quickly as my hand will turn it, but it gives you resistance so that wherever you put this bezel on the dial, it's deliberate.
I think it has to probably do with some of the rubber gaskets that are underneath it, and it's probably pushed up pretty tightly up against the bezel.
Yeah.
So that,
but that doesn't, you know, mess with the fit because it looks very flush against the body. It has such a nice profile. It's so easy to grip. It has these huge, like this sort of coin edge grip to it. That it's just so pleasing to turn.
And keep in mind, the reason it probably does feel so unique and better than anything else is because of this monoblock construction, right? Definitely. The way everything gets put in, the movement, everything gets put in through the top of the watch.
Straining my arm doing it. It's like, and it has so much resistance.
Yeah,
you're absolutely
it does.
right.
But I feel it's not too much though.
No,
you know,
it's still practical. The thing is, you know, like if you're trying to set it quickly, it might be a different story. However, it is the nicest feeling action on any bezel, and this is to include any Rolexes that I've played with. It's up there.
Yeah.
This is up there, guys. If you're interested in tool watches or dive watches, the action you're going to get on this bezel is just a joy.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. And so one of the cool things too about this is a lot of people, you know, some uneducated people saw this, they're going to be like, oh, it just kind of looks kind of like a Rolex, right? Well, I think it's really important to note that this watch, the grandfather, I mean, you know, like a deep sea kind of, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to note that this watch traces its roots back to 1967. I believe the original model number was I believe it was 6129, right? And they created a high beat version of this, which was actually really cool. If you guys just look up, I think it's 6129. Maybe we'll throw in a little picture as well.
I want to see that now. Yeah. Seiko Heidi?
No, high beat.
High beat.
It used a high beat movement in it, right?
Seiko Heidi. You get something completely different when you look that up.
But yeah, so the original the original MM300 basically kind of came out in '67, and you know what else came out in '67? The Rolex Sea Dweller. So the sweet Sea Dweller, which eventually became the Deep Sea. Both of these basically have their lineage back to 1967.
You know, and that's the thing. Like, so far as these design cues are concerned, like, I think, and at this point, most dive watches borrow similar features from each other. Rolex has done it the same for the longest, and I think that's why people draw those comparisons. But it's funny, like, we were talking about this earlier. My girlfriend was in the space earlier, and I was showing her Adam's new Marine Master, and she's like, "Ah, it looks like your dive watch." But the thing is, she says that about every dive watch I've ever owned. Like, this is going to look similar to the Seamaster.
As long as there's a bezel.
As long as there's a bezel.
Turning
and
bezel.
Like
bezel.
big old, hour markers.
Yeah.
It's to the untrained eye.
Yeah.
They're all the same, and you know what? I think we get so nitpicky. To me, this dial and this look has a very unique life of its own.
Oh, absolutely.
And I
4 o'clock crown. I mean, all these are typical old school Seiko
hallmarks.
attributes.
Yeah. So my experience with it so far as a first impression, I've actually considered the Marine Master myself, and it doesn't let down. You know what? This uses the same bracelet, I'm almost sure, and to the tuna.
Yeah.
The Marine Master tunas that are out there.
It's just a little different size and the links, the straight end links on the tuna. This is the more modern tuna. I believe it's like SVBN 33 is there?
Yeah.
30.
And you had 2 of them.
I had the Ninja, a black one, and then I had the standard one on the steel. But
yeah, and
something about this
aesthetically it's very pleasing, and again, I can only glean so much from having it on the wrist for a short amount of time, but it's comfortable for the most part, right? I think the profile on your wrist, again, I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, excuse me for this being upside down, but this gives you a good idea of what it would look like on a 7 1/4 inch wrist. And you know what? It has a lot of presence, but that's the whole idea behind this watch. If you're going to get this piece, because you know what? That case is the main feature. And you know what? When you look at this, you see nothing but that glorious case. And Seiko's excellent finish. I mean, you almost said Grand Seiko a second ago, and I don't blame them, because wow, man, there's a lot of beautiful Grand Seikos out there, and we've had a chance to play with a lot of them.
Yeah.
This finishing on this case is definitely up to caliber.
Superb.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, what's great about Seiko in general is that they never neglect to finish a case well.
Yeah.
For any of their lineup, and the Prospect lineup in general, in particular, is done so well. From the Turtle to the Sumo to the Marine Master, you can tell they care about the design and the finish, and it's so gorgeous and so unique. You're not going to find a case that looks like that. I mean, so if you're in the market for a Marine Master, like I am, and I'm still considering, there's a lot of variants out there, from the Zimbe to the Classic.
And then they have the 50th anniversary or whatever it was with the gold. That's a limited edition that's selling for well into the 2000s. The Zimbe's pretty.
I would definitely go on a honeymoon with this.
Yeah. And, absolutely. And I mean, there's some great reviews out there already online, and a couple of video reviews. Bruce Williams, shout out to the IWA Facebook group, has two great videos. Yeah, 6 months of living with it too, which is awesome.
You almost made me want to get one. I know you don't have one right now, though. And,
he's getting one back.
Yeah,
it's only a matter of time. He wants one, so we'll see.
But no, and I can see why. Let's talk about the movement in this piece, and one of the issues.
Really, the only downfall I'm going to have to say, but I could also be unlucky. This has been I've been unlucky in the last 4 months.
But this is
every automatic watch.
This is a 2016 purchase.
Exactly. This is a 2016 purchase. Or the original buyer got this in 2016.
Yeah.
So this is the 8L35 movement, which is essentially an undecorated Grand Seiko movement. The time it has a 50-hour power reserve. Time tolerances are supposed to be losing 10 seconds a day to plus 15, right?
15, right?
I've been losing around 30 seconds a day with this piece.
Yeah.
That's a problem. When you're spending this much money on a great watch like this, like 30 seconds is just unacceptable.
And it's like when I, and he told me that before I saw it moments ago, really. and you can almost forgive it.
Right.
Initially, because it's just it's lovely. It's just an exquisite piece. But daily usage, 30 seconds is a lot.
And for 2016, I mean, I can forgive of like a 20-year-old piece or a vintage piece for losing a lot of time and just being like, all right. But I mean, I don't know if someone previously tinkered with this a little bit out of the factory, but I've also heard of a very wide range of time tolerances. So I guess that's the one downfall.
And then it's not easily accessible for a lot of repairmen because of this case design without them tampering with its water resistance. So you need a specialist to look at these, and unfortunately...
I wouldn't trust anyone here in New York, so I'm lucky that I found, again, Jack at IWW, who specializes in Marine Masters.
Yeah.
So I'm sending this off to him.
It isn't problematic because the expense isn't too high to have it regulated.
It's not, but at the same time, like if I'm getting something that literally just came out and that was just purchased, I mean, 10 seconds, I could live with 10 seconds. I could even live with plus 15 seconds. But losing 30 seconds is just a pain in the ass. Because the moment, what do you have to do? You have to unscrew. You have to probably go a minute in advance. Right, instead of maybe being plus 15 or 20 seconds, all I have to do is just pop it out for 15 seconds, pop it back in.
Yeah.
Losing time is so much more of a pain in the ass than gaining time, you know?
Truthfully.
So,
this
literally is everything I hoped for and thought it would be, except the timekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, hopefully it'll be within plus 10 seconds. God, I would love it to be like plus 3, 4, 5 seconds.
I bet you it will be. I mean,
right
now,
absolutely.
Adam's wearing Grand Seiko. He just got back from shop, and this thing is accurate to the second.
Right now. I just had a.
How old is it? It's
this is now 49 years old. So, it's in 1968.
So
Grand
there's a Grand Seiko.
High beat movement too. Absolutely in love with this watch.
Not only is it just a pleasure to look at when you're seeing that second-hand turn, it's amazingly accurate. So there's no doubt in my mind. Like in Seiko, for their higher-end models, they make the movements obviously in Japan, and they regulate them, and they can be regulated at extraordinary.
And that's the thing. I think
levels.
I don't know why Seiko just doesn't do that. Like, is it really that? If they're doing so much, I think. Even the hands on this are applied by hand, or the markers. Sorry, all the loom. Like, is it really that difficult just to regulate a watch right before you just put it on time grapher and regulate it so that it's within cost specs? I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Or develop a way you can regulate that without opening the case. I bet you, with all the innovations as of late, especially coming from Seiko, that is a possibility.
But that would be so much more expensive than just regulating it out. You know what I mean?
I suppose for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that's the one gripe I have about this piece. But other than that, I mean, the finishing on this is incredible.
Oh, and on that finishing note, guys, you know what? And this is another thing. Like you'd seen it before, and this is sight unseen. Me experiencing it for the first time. I've seen them at the boutique, but. I would never plan on buying it from them, so I didn't even tease myself. Yeah. But when you look at these hands, like I've seen them in picture, they're absolutely gorgeous. But you don't realize the level of detail. Those thick slabs of metal have polished edges and brushed tops. And they probably have a good amount of weight to them, too. Like, the level of finish and quality, it's almost where it's forgivable about the movement, but... once it's regulated, I think you have an amazing piece on your hands. And you know what? This bezel, a lot of people have been questioning about the material. All we know is it has a lacquered finish. And that lacquer, if this ever gets scratched, can be repolished. And there's a lot of guys that run tutorials on how to fix that up. But you were talking about just applying some simple car polish to get
I've seen a couple of people car polish wax on there and just bring the bezel right up and protects it. I'm almost 99% positive that this bezel is hand painted as well. I've seen that in a couple places, which kind of which is why it gives it almost that kind of like sapphire ceramic kind of.
There is a lot of confusion about that, and I know they could definitely be a little bit more detailed in describing what that is.
Would you go as far as to say that this is one of Seiko's masterpieces?
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, Seiko makes so many good watches.
Yeah, right.
And, you can probably tell I'm a little bit of a fanboy, and
It depends your definition on masterpiece, right?
they can do wrong. I mean, I think
true.
the new snowflake dials they're producing in those spring drive watches are a work of art, and I think that's what a good watch is. When you spend a lot of money for a watch, you're not only getting something that's a time. There's a difference between a watch and a timepiece. When you're spending a lot of money for a watch, I want to consider it a timepiece, something that is equally there to tell you the time, but is also a work of art. And in this case, I would say it's a timepiece. I think it's a work of art. It's really it epitomizes what a tool watch is, what a true diver is, in a package that a diver could actually use, but is just a joy for any consumer to pick up and wear.
Just the level of detail, you know, that goes into it. If you guys kind of look at the lugs, you'll see on the side, it's polished, and then on the top of the lugs, it turns into brushed. And right there where the case meets the lugs, the solid end links, there's a slight amount of polishing there as well.
And
like,
another angle.
Just like, you know what I mean? Like, actually putting the effort in to do that.
Yeah.
You know, putting that little bit of polish work where it meets, you know, I feel like most manufacturers, or most, you know, most lower end watches.
Make them straight.
Yeah, just make them straight.
Straighten them, brush it. And like even the angling of the brush, it's different, you know, like another, and this, again, they continue this quality with all of their watches. Like their case design is impeccable. So Seiko is in the market of making timepieces. And I love how that's been a well-kept secret for so long. But I got a gut feeling that anyone with a Marine Master, these things would mature. And you see those vintage Marine Masters go for, I mean...
Oh, they're expensive as hell.
Yeah,
like really good condition ones are thousands and thousands of dollars.
And there's a reason why. Because you know what? Those are also timepieces.
Yeah.
I really think we said it all.
The loom is phenomenal. Forgot to touch on that.
Yeah.
If you guys want to see some loom shots, there are plenty of... Bruce Williams has a great comparison of the loom shot. What can you say? It's Seiko Loom. More bright. It shines like a torch.
Whether you buy a $50 Seiko to a $2,000 Seiko, expect to be able to see that thing in the dark. And they
second to none.
And they love using their loom. Like they'll put it anywhere they can.
Yep.
So guys, if you like this video, if you're ever interested in getting a Marine Master 300, like this video because it shows that you are. If you dislike it, shame on you. Shame on you, because you're disliking Seiko's Marine Master. Guys, if you want to see more content like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button. We would love for you to join us on the channel and suggest comparisons with some of our collection while we have these pieces here. If you want us to talk about our thoughts on the Submariner as opposed to, or maybe a Sea Dweller as opposed to Marine Master, we would do that. Or any suggestions you have on how you'd better improve the channel, we're here for you, and we're definitely here to take those opinions because we want to give it to you. Also, if you want to see our content as it's pushed, there's a little bell icon next to the subscribe button on the homepage. Feel free to hit that, and you'll see our stuff as it comes out.
Follow us on Instagram at ClockStockBarrel.
Yeah, guys, we don't plug the Instagram enough, but we've got a few followers on there already, and we're huge watch nerds, and we love our watch porn. So if you want to follow us there, that'd be awesome. There's a link actually on our homepage to the Instagram, so you can catch us there. Anyway, guys, take care, and thank you for joining us.